For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Hello, this is Corey Clubb, and welcome to show number 24 of Coffee with Kenobi, a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. With me is my good friend and co-host, Dan Z.
Hello, everybody. Be sure to check out episode 77 of Full of Sith, where we got to talk with Mike, Brian, and Bobby about Rebels, Greg Weisman, and Princess Leia. It was an amazing show. We had a great time collaborating with our friends. Speaking of friends, be sure to download our latest book chat featuring John Jackson Miller. John shares his insights on A New Dawn you won't want to miss, particularly if you're looking forward to this exciting book. And of course, our Coffee with Kenobi bloggers always have some powerful posts up for you to check out at coffeewithkenobi.com.
In today's show, Jordan Mason of Cinelinx joins us to talk about our topic for show number 24, Darth Maul. Jordan brings a fresh perspective you won't want to miss. His love for this character will have you looking at Darth Maul in exciting new ways.
We will also discuss the release date for Rebels, Rebels clips, the Ice Bucket challenges, and Coffee with Kenobi t-shirts. We will also have the next offering of your Espresso Shot with Bearded Trio featuring Rob Wainfur. And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
So in our first news story, it's the news we've been waiting for very patiently. We've certainly tried anyway. The premiere for Star Wars Rebels. The premiere date is going to be Friday, October 3rd on the Disney Channel. We're going to have the regular series premiere of Star Wars Rebels on Monday, October 13th over on Disney XD, where it's going to take over. So this is exciting, and we've got a whole lot of things going on here with this. We've got, as I said, October 3rd. It's going to be out on September 29th. If you have, if you're a Disney Channel SVOD user that's verified, you can go to watchdisneyxd.com and you can watch it then or through the Disney XD app. What else did you see about this?
Well, it certainly establishes a date that we've all been waiting to hear, and essentially the first October 3rd date is the premiere of the Spark of the Rebellion, which seems to be the setup intro movie, if you will.
Yeah,
similar to what they did with the Clone Wars.
So yeah, although that was in theaters, but yeah,
right. But
movie concept, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's nice that they're setting it up like this again. It seems like they're following the familiar format, but I also think they're still striving to reach new bounds. So yeah, this is definitely exciting for fans to hear because we've been hitting all these videos been coming out with these little clips and little scenes we're gonna get to later. But it's exciting to see this come out and finally be verified as far as an official date. You and I both discussed the Adam Beret's great visual guide that we got sent and get to talk to him about. And of course, we also talked to John Jackson Miller about his full-length novel introducing us to Kanan and Hera. And so I'm pumped, man. I'm ready to do this.
Oh, it's great. So let's just go through them. And this is just through our website, and we got the official press release from Lucasfilm that people can go check out on the website. But so again, September 29th, we've got Rebels Spark of Rebellion, the 1-hour movie on Disney XD. If you are a verified user of SVOD, and honestly, I really don't know what that is, but hopefully people listening will. Then October 3rd is the big day. It's going to be on the Disney Channel at 9 o'clock Eastern, the televised premiere of the 1-hour episode. October 4th, Saturday, you can get this on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Google Play, and Disney XD Video on Demand.
Which is I want to cut in and say that's a smart move to put it out digitally. The very next day. That's smart, I think. So and good use of what's available to folks out there who can't get. I mean, I know I don't have Disney, so I'll be.
If only a co-host to live by you. Yeah,
I'll be shacking up, doing a sleepover, hanging out.
Well, I better tell my wife about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then remind me at the end of our little discussion here to ask you a question about this that I'm sure our listeners are asking themselves right now. So October 6th, then on Monday, Sparks of Rebellion premieres on Disney XD, which people will have seen, but it's just kind of going through all the proper channels, pun intended. Then we go to October 13th. The series premieres on Disney XD. And then on October 14th, that's when the DVD comes out. Now, the DVD looks pretty cool, too. It's got a lot of stuff going on with it. It's going to have the premiere. It's going to have the different shorts that have been airing. It's going to have some new behind-the-scenes making-of stuff that has not previously been seen. So that's going to be cool, too. And I believe there's a 3D mock-up of the Ghost as well.
That's cool. That's very cool. And remind me, if I'm not maybe wrong on this, but was this Spark of Rebellion, was that what they showed at San Diego Comic-Con?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So folks can kind of tune in and be able to see that, and catch up to and get up to date with that.
Yes, exactly.
But you want to ask me a question.
I did want to ask you a question. So here's the big question. Obviously, we're all going to watch it when it premieres, setting our DVRs. So on October 4th, will you buy it on iTunes, or will you wait and get the DVD on October 14th?
See, it's interesting you said that, because my kids...
I'm an interesting man, Corey.
You're a most interesting man, yes. Taming goats and things, yes. It's interesting because this day and age, we live in a digital world, and our kids are very digital, and we own, I think 18 versions of Frozen. So we're constantly watching that every device, on everything. So my kids are very apt to pick up the iPad or, a similar device on like a Wii or something like that and watch digitally, versus, a DVD or something like that. It seems to be the old way, if you will. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm certain we'll probably buy a digital version just so, we can pop it on and kids can watch it whenever they want to. I'm excited for it. I mean, they're going to want to watch it over and over again, and I'm going to want to watch it over and over again. So I'm sure I'll probably get the digital version. But when that DVD release is going to have the special edition stuff in there.
I know.
So it's tempting. It's very tempting. How about you?
Well, your conversation has made me even more confused. Because I agree. I mean, to have it digitally would be cool, because then you have it for like 10 days where you can watch it whenever you want. So I probably will go that route because it'll be nice. I'm still hoping to somehow incorporate this premiere episode into my classrooms in some capacity. So it'll be easier to transfer that around. However, just having that DD and putting that on the shelf with all my other Star Wars DVDs, it's going to be really, really hard to resist that. So, although full disclosure, the last 2 seasons of Clone Wars I don't own, gasp, on DVD. I mean, they're on Netflix, so I can watch whenever I want. I have the first 3 seasons on Blu-ray. I just, for whatever reason, haven't gotten them, but I want to. I want to put it on my shelf and put the DVD of Spark of Rebellion on there. So it'd be great to hear other people chime in and let us know what their plans are for the series. And that just means we're closer to our goal. We have the date in sight, and then we're also that much closer, Corey, to our premiere episode of Rebels Reactions, where we get to actually talk about the show itself.
Yeah, we've been kind of doing a couple of Rebel Reaction shows with...
We do 5 so far?
We've done 4 or 5 now. We had some interviews, and we also looked at some of the... I think it was the 7-minute... Was it the 7-minute trailer we looked at, too?
Yeah. So,
we analyzed that, and... So now we can officially get on board with it and take it an episode at a time and break it down and have some... We've got some great guests lined up to analyze these shows with us. We're excited to get them on and get talking and talk Rebels. Well, for our second news story, we're talking Rebels again. They released a couple of clips, some short reels, kind of introducing us to the characters a little bit more and some of the dynamic. And we get our official look at kind of the inside of the Ghost and how that kind of is designed, and it's interesting to see, that play out. I mean, obviously, if you haven't watched them, go out and check them out. There's one that's got, like I said, they got Hera and Kanan and Chopper taking out some TIE fighters and seeing their interactive and their connectability as far as, teamwork there. And then we got a second little clip with Sabine, who's wrecking some havoc on some stormtroopers and showing us her little spunk there, and it was really interesting. But you want to go a little deeper into this, Dan? What do you think?
Yeah, let's just take them in order that they were released. The first one with Kanan and Hera and Chopper was my favorite clip that I've seen so far of anything. It was written by Greg Weisman, which is cool. So props to him for that. The thing that surprised me the most, I love the little homages, like shot for shot, sound-wise, even the musical cues to the Escape from the Death Star and A New Hope. That was hard to miss.
Yeah.
And very cool. My favorite thing was Chopper, though. And I've always liked Chopper. He was just, I made jokes before, like, yeah, I'm not going to get a tattoo of Chopper.
I was going to say earlier,
but now maybe I will.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. But I just liked how he used his arms as like flexing his muscles. He was very animated. He told a lot. He was even more communicative than R2-D2.
I agree.
If I could say that, because he's just very expressive, and I think those arms, those appendages, add to that. So I did like that. There's one thing that made me kind of think, oh dear, which I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But what about you? What'd you think of that one?
Yeah, it's a great clip because it shows, like I said, it shows the interior of the ghost ship and kind of the functionality of where they sit and where relative to where the cannons are and what Chopper kind of does and how he gets around, and also it showed the connectability between Hera and Kanan, which we haven't seen yet on a clip. They weren't in the 7-minute preview together, but it shows their interaction, and of course it was a tense action scene. TIE fighters, that great TIE fighter noise. I mean, that just gives you chills.
Yeah.
It really does. And it's a lot of fun to see them just blow up. I think somebody had said it in their podcast that it looks like realistic when they explode in space, and it just looks fantastic. So I think the animation is really dead on here. And again, that dynamic of, teamwork, but yet it's a messy teamwork. They get the job done, but it's also a way of just connecting the points and connecting the characters, how they communicate, and I say, and this might be your little quirk here.
Yeah, you probably guess what
at the end, maybe a little bit of romance.
Yes. Okay. All right. How did you feel about that?
When he was coming back through the door there, I thought, I wonder if they're going to look like they're in a moment there, or romantic moment of some sort, and they were, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then instantly I was like, oh, I think I kind of called this in my own head. I thought there's going to be some kind of love interest somewhere in some aspect, and they're the older team members. I don't know if that's something that...
Well, I got to tread lightly here.
Sure.
So, obviously you can't be around someone for that length of time and that sort of intensity and duress. And, they're both attractive, powerful, strong people with like-minded goals, and A New Dawn starts to flesh out the beginnings of that. And in the end, you see this kind of, they're making a little face, will they, won't they kind of stuff. And I'm just going to put the brakes on fandom right now, and I'm going to say, all right, will they, won't they? Please, let's not make this into Twilight, the Star Wars edition. No. I can't handle that. Seriously. I'm all against romance. Excuse me. Let me
against romance?
No. I am all for romance. I'm happily married to my beautiful wife. But let's be clear on this. And I'm going to quote Benedict from Much Ado About Nothing, Shakespeare's great play. The world must be peopled. Yes, we must have romance. We must have that. But please don't center this burgeoning rebellion and this focus into that. And maybe I just sound like a grumpy dude.
Maybe you
do. Curmudgeon.
Maybe you do. Know. But here's what I'm going to say too.
This is Star Wars. There's a little bit of romance there, but that's not the focus. I don't know.
Let me just say, like you mentioned before, Greg Weisman wrote this little clip, and he did such awesome work on Young Justice.
That's one of my favorite animated shows.
But look at the romance there.
But that worked in the context of the story. It wasn't like. It just sort of, we found out about it later. It wasn't like a will they, won't they for 3 years. I don't want
I don't know.
How I Met Your Mother, the Star Wars.
I don't think it's going to be that.
How many comparisons can I make?
No. I think here's what I just think aspect of that is of this clip is we know Kanan as a Jedi, right? And from this point, Jedis are we know this, but we're not supposed to have attachments. So now that the Jedi Order is defunct. The rules are up in the air. So why can't he have a companion or attachment? So I think that's interesting.
He can, but to be fair, you're doing this Coffee with Kenobi spin on this course.
Yes, sir.
Which I like. So the rules aren't defunct because the order was disavowed. I mean, the order is going to be reinvented through our friend Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, but
if you're not going to hold true to the ideals of who you are, then are you really who you are? And that's, of course, and that's not something that can be answered now because we need to see Rebels.
Absolutely.
And it hasn't even been fleshed out yet. And that's going to be constantly evolving. And it's going to be actually quite awesome to see him struggling with who he is and who he wants to be and how he wants to take on the Jedi persona. So you actually made this a lot more profound for me. So I appreciate that.
Well, let's move on to the secondary clip here. We get to see little sabotage, little artwork going on with Sabine, and we get to explore her character a little bit more too. For me, this was a great clip because I'm an artist.
It really was.
And it was really cool because she was suave and she was a move ahead of these guys. And like at first I was like, oh, these are dumb stormtroopers, and they kind of, as the clip moves on, they see they kind of get their wits together and work together trying to find her, and she's still one step ahead, and she has it seems like she's already got the plan moved out in her head, and she knows what she's going to do, and it just shows her gravity as a character. I think she's going to be a powerful character, I think, for viewers. I think for me, I think she really fleshed her out a little more for me, because I was kind of up in the air,
really
leaning on if she's going to be too young or too old. She's going to play that balanced role.
She's certainly someone that people are going to gravitate towards. I found her extremely cool. And that has never changed, and this just adds to that. So it's a lot of fun. Again, we have a very unique approach. Were you confused by the fact that stormtroopers have their eyeball on the explosive, and it explodes, and then they're all okay?
Well, that's what I was going to say too. Is it exploded, and I thought, oh, those are actually dead. I mean,
I didn't do a count, so maybe.
Well, I didn't do a count either, but they all kind of stood up and rubbed their head, Looney Tunes style. And so it was interesting to see that dynamic too. She wasn't trying to kill anyone, so she's a rebel, but she's also seems like she's a pacifist too. The whole time they're blasting her. Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's looking at the art angle, and she's still working her own vibe there. Yeah.
So you're an artist.
Yeah.
Why would you create something that only 4 people are going to see, and then they're going to die, so your art is not going to live on? Isn't that a problem for an artist?
Not at all. Art is a statement, my friend.
Really?
Yes. It's. I mean, whether it's going to be exploded or slapped on a board or molded together with clay, it's a statement, and it's for whatever the artist is doing and whatever they're expressing. It's going to be exactly what they want to be and actually work for the viewer exactly how it's supposed to. So I think she was dead on with it.
So this is why when my brother just said to me the other night, how can you possibly talk about Star Wars so much? Don't you run out of things to talk about? There's still so much we can talk about with just the original trilogy itself. We could talk about that stuff for years. And now we've got Rebels. Just these 2 clips have added so many dimensions to the kind of avenues we can explore with Star Wars. So bravo again to Dave Filoni and Simon Kinberg and Greg Weisman and all the great people working on Rebels, the cast and crew, because they keep providing all this awesome stuff, and we haven't even seen a full episode yet. I do want to point out before we move on to our next story that these clips are not clips that are going to be in any of the shows. They've said that on the Star Wars Rebels official Facebook page. They are canonical clips, but they're not going to be in any of the particular episodes. So that's why I think the DVD is even more appealing. Our next news story is a very exciting one. I guess it's a bit of a bittersweet thing because they announced the Force for Change winner, the person who got to be on the set of Episode 7. And that winner is DC Barnes of Denver, Colorado. Congratulations to DC. And he seems to be, I've never met him, but he seems like a really great guy, a huge Star Wars fan. So this was awesome. His reaction that they showed on that video, which we have on our website, be in our show notes, he's truly seemed taken aback and just pleasantly surprised and overjoyed. And I was really happy for him. I mean, obviously I would have liked one of us to win, or, someone that is a friend of our show or something like that. But hey, this guy seems awesome, and he won the dream.
He did, and I couldn't be more happy for the guy. I mean, anybody would be happy for it, just to experience that and be part of history in the Star Wars saga. I mean, just to be a fan out there, and I would hope that he'd be able to post kind of his I don't want to call it his daily experiences online somehow. We could fans could follow along. That'd be really cool, I think, to be able to get in touch with him and cheer him on and just really be able to live vicariously through him.
Yes.
But I think too, it's bittersweet. I mean, at first, of course, everybody's like, "Oh, it's not me." That regret of wanting to win the ultimate grand prize. But there's always episodes 8 and 9, so who knows what they'll do for that? And
yeah, we'll win that one.
So absolutely, yeah.
Why not think of that?
But congratulations to DC Barnes, and we wish him luck, and of course that everything would go fabulously, and maybe J.J. Abrams will keep him on for episode 8 and 9. Who knows? We'll see.
He could be an action figure. To me, that would
be the ultimate. Dude.
That would be the ultimate. I mean, there are a lot of dreams and goals you have as a fan of Star Wars, and to me, that would be pretty cool. So we're happy for him. I think it's wonderful. I would love to have him on, and before and after to talk about it. I don't even know if he has a Twitter account. Maybe by the time this is out, people will. He's probably got a lot more followers by this point if he does. So congratulations again to him. And I suppose we should talk about the card that Bad Robot tweeted out, and JJ wrote, "Huge thanks to everyone who contributed to Star Wars Force for Change. Over $5 million were raised to help UNICEF Innovation Labs. We are all so grateful. DC Barnes, see you on set." And that's why this suddenly goes from bittersweet to just fantastic, because they raised $4.2 million, and Disney contributed $1 million themselves. So over $5 million for this incredibly important cause. And the fact that all of us Star Wars fans united. I mean, obviously we wanted to be in the film, but we also were happy to contribute to something that is very worthwhile, and UNICEF does great work, and we want to help out people, and this is what happened. So congratulations again.
Our next news story has to do with a raging phenomenon that's going on right now in the land of the internets. The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge is going on right now. It's fabulous. It's going everywhere. Everybody. It seems like it's kind of that 7 degrees of separation. If you know somebody that's done it, that you've seen a video online or a celebrity has done it. It's certainly a good cause. It's for ALS. It's also called Lou Gehrig's disease, and it has to do with a shutting down of the muscle system. Obviously, slowly going paralyzed of the body functions. It's a very horrible disease, and they still haven't found a cure for it. And certainly, this is a great way to get in touch and learn more and donate to a good cause. Certainly, this challenge has raised a lot of props to celebrities and getting them involved and raising a lot of money. But J.J. Abrams took on the challenge, and he's got a great video out there kind of calling out and giving some historical facts of some of his family members who've been affected by this disease. And Dan, you want to explain more about who he challenged?
Well, JJ, when he was challenged, he ended up challenging Stephen King, which I thought was fun.
That was cool.
Yeah, and Steven Spielberg, I believe, challenged JJ, didn't he? And he also challenged George Lucas, who's certainly a name we're all very familiar with and we love. I was looking at the ALSA.org website, which we'll have a link to on our show notes. Did you know that this ice bucket challenge thing has raised over $22 million?
Yeah, $22 million and going.
Wow.
And, I guess
that's incredible.
Yeah, from last year, I think it was around, don't quote me on this, but maybe $5 million. Is that, I think the number was $5 million at this time of year. They're kind of doing a similar, similar challenge of some kind. And this was just obviously blown out of the water, no pun intended. But, yeah, it's definitely a good cause. And I know a lot of folks out there are kind of downplaying a little bit and not want to really hop on the bandwagon. And that's up to them. I think everybody's allowed to do what they want to do. And I think it's certainly, whether you've got, $1 to send or, $1,000 to send, I think just dumping water in your head and being involved in raising awareness is the best thing you can do and get the word out there to folks who maybe don't know about it. But yeah, J.J. Abrams definitely took this on with gusto. And we see it kind of trickle down. And I actually saw, Stephen King did his today and called out John Grisham. So it keeps on rolling.
Oh, you saw his?
Yeah, it was cool.
They're all been. I think that Chris Pratt's from Guardians of the Galaxy, his was pretty phenomenal.
His was cool.
So Mike Audette, and I called him out differently on the video, but he challenged us. This is how it all started. He challenged us, and he challenged the Forcecast and Rebel Force Radio. And I posted mine, and then you texted me and said, I would have done that with you, which I didn't even think about. So you posted yours too. And since then, Coffee with Kenobi has been challenged 2 more times. So I think that's safe and fair to say, well, we just put the link and showed other people who challenged us, because it's cool to be a part of it. I love that they're raising so much money.
Yes.
It really is bringing people together. I'm not tired of it at all. Some people apparently are worried if it's a gimmick. It's not a gimmick when you're raising money to help people.
Right. Anything to bring about awareness to a good cause is good in my book, I think. And
I agree.
And I think that folks calling us out, go right ahead and we'll post our videos and show you what it's all about. We'll put a link in our show notes here. And the ice for me was like Hoth cold. How about you?
It was cold, but you get over it real quick, and it's fun.
Sure, yeah.
I thought it was really fun. I really liked Steve Sansweet's video.
Yeah, his was cool.
That was really fun. He had the puppet Salacious Crumb with him, and he had a great time. He was challenged by a 5-year-old little girl, and that was really sweet. So it's just been a lot of fun. So we encourage people to keep on spreading the word. This is raising a lot of awareness for a disease that is sort of not always on the radar the way that it probably should be because of the impact it has on our culture and people all over the world. So keep on spreading the word and fighting the good fight. And hopefully with this and the Force for Change and the other things going on, that we as a community can continue to rise above and to make this world a better place.
I also want to note, too, if you have another charity you would like to give to, you certainly don't have to give to ALS charity. You're more than welcome to give to a charity of your choice. It's not specified for just that. I know a lot of folks have been talking about, they feel left out as far as if, cancer proceeds or other things out there that want to be involved. I certainly start the trend with something else too. I think it'll catch on. Be out there and be like I said, be a force for change and be out there and raise awareness.
And now, your Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio.
Hi everybody, I'm Rob Wainfur and welcome to another Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio. Stay tuned to find out how you can win a copy of the superb book, The Art of John Alvin. But first, let's get straight into it with some Spielberg news.
Hi, and a nice cool night. I'm Steven Spielberg, and I'm accepting the Ice Bucket Challenge by Oprah Winfrey, my co-producing partner. And I nominate, I guess within the next 24 hours, George Lucas, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and J.J. Abrams. Oh, man, that's cold! Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Yep, that was Steven Spielberg, and he is one of the latest to take up the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. The idea is you pour ice-cold water over yourself to raise money for the ALS Association. Before you do that, though, you need to nominate the next victim, and as you heard, George Lucas is nominated by Spielberg himself. Now, at the time of recording this, we are still waiting for the big GL to get cold, so come on, George, step up. Sticking with Steven Spielberg, and a few weeks back the world was hit with the sad news of the passing of Robin Williams. A much-loved actor and comedian, he had close ties with Steven Spielberg, including the 1991 classic Hook, where he played Peter Pan. He also took to phoning Spielberg during the time the director was filming Schindler's List to cheer him up. Spielberg found the filming of the movie so emotional due to his roots, so Williams would phone him with various jokes to lift his spirits. Here's a clip of Steven Spielberg being interviewed and talking about Hook, and classic Robin Williams interrupts the interview. At one point, Spielberg explained they were laughing so much on the set of Hook. The laughing hurt, said Spielberg. He also explains how Robin Williams was at his most awkward when he had to play Pan as a straight guy with no imagination and humour, which is depicted in the movie before Pan realises he is actually Peter Pan. Take a listen.
What would Steven Spielberg, the movie critic, be like? You go to movies on the weekend, I guess, with family. Are you tough? Are you watching them like a surgeon?
I'm
are you
a
watching
terrible
them?
critic. I like everything. It's my problem. I find good in everything. Even movies that people say, How could you say one
Come
nice
back here.
thing?
Come here. Do this. If you're going to do this, sit in his lap and let's tell a story
Oh,
or something.
my
I
God.
because I told him he
Technicolor.
couldn't stand up and say, "I want to see your genitals."
My eyes.
Here we go again. We'll never see this.
It's Elvis fan.
Hey, Elvis.
Elvis fan.
Elvis.
I got my happy thought. Thank you. I'm going to sing a song. Thank you very much. I'm going to sing a song right now about some nutty buddies. And
This is the other problem with making the movie. Talking about how hard it was laughing.
yeah, we had to.
The laughing hurt. The laughing hurt in the sides, in the throat,
And in the back, in the mind.
He is an editor's nightmare, though. I mean, editors see him and they go, because he comes in, he shows up, he's cutting on him all the time. You can't cut on a half a phrase.
Like, it's hard to get a two-shot right now, right?
I hope so.
Damn it, I can't hold it. Damn it, Jim, the camera's too wide. Bones go wide. I'll be back.
We love you.
We've got gifts and things.
Gifts.
This is what happened every day.
He makes me sweat,
I'll
too.
tell
I mean, I sweat when he's
I don't mind
around.
if Robin hears this. When Robin was playing Peter Banning,
He's talking about you.
You can hear this. When Robin was playing Peter Banning, who's the guy with no imagination, uptight, workaholic, very focused on his work, very little peripheral vision toward his family. He was at his funniest between shots because he was the least comfortable playing that character. When he began to evolve into the Pan, then he was able to express it more through the character and less in between the shots. I thought it was really interesting about Robin.
Robin Williams, you will be missed. Okay, let's do some gaming news. And after nearly 16 years of game development at BioWare, executive producer Casey Hudson has made the decision to move on from BioWare and enter a new stage of his career. BioWare said, starting as a technical artist on Neverwinter Nights and MDK2, Casey moved into the project director role with the 2003 Game of the Year Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. He then led the team in the development of the Mass Effect trilogy, an award-winning series that many others consider to be one of the most important science fiction universes of our generation. Casey's focus on production quality, digital acting technology, and emotionally engaging narrative has made a substantial impact on BioWare and the video game industry as a whole. Now, Casey shared his thoughts with his colleagues in a letter, and he said, after what already feels like a lifetime of extraordinary experiences, I have decided to hit the reset button and move on from BioWare. I'll take a much needed break, get perspective on what I really want to do with the next phase of my life, and eventually take on a new set of challenges. Now, Casey is currently working on a new unnamed IP, and using his words, will redefine interactive entertainment. So stay tuned for that one. Now, sticking with gaming, and for all you retro gamers and lovers of grog, Alessandro Gazzazzo, and I hope I pronounced your name right, has put together a LEGO campaign to bring us the Scum Bar from LucasArts' Monkey Island. It really is stunning and will bring a nostalgic smile to your face. Now, he's looking for us landlubbers support, so head over to ideas.lego.com and type in Monkey Island, and make sure you give him your support, because I really want to buy this set. So if you don't, I'll tell LeChuck. And finally, as promised, it's competition time, and you can win a copy of the excellent book, The Art of John Alvin. Now, John has produced some of the most famous paintings for the likes of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, including E.T., The Colour Purple, Empire of the Sun, Always, Jurassic Park, as well as a whole host of Star Wars work. The book is packed with concept drawings and never-before-seen posters for Jurassic Park and E.T. Now, thanks to Titan Books, I have a copy to give away. And all you have to do is tweet that you've listened to the Espresso Shot on Coffee with Kenobi. Now, be sure to include at Coffee with Kenobi or at the Bearded Trio to make sure you get flagged. If you don't tweet, if you don't use Twitter, you can head over to Facebook, head to the Coffee with Kenobi Facebook page or the Bearded Trio Facebook page, and just leave a message to say that you've listened to the show, and you'll be entered into the competition. So that's it. Be sure to enter. You have a chance of winning this fabulous book. It really is a great prize. So make sure you're in with a chance of winning that. So that's it for your Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio. Thanks for listening. If you want to contact me, you can email me at rob@thebeardedtrio or via Facebook or Twitter as well. So that's it from me. Thanks for listening. Until next time, goodbye.
You lewd, crude, rude bag of pre-chewed food, dude.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say, Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
Our first collector's news story seems pretty appropriate. We were talking about Steve Sansweet, and it was officially announced that he will be at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim, which is no surprise to anyone. I would think that's safe to say. But he's going to be bringing a little bit of Rancho Obi-Wan to Celebration Anaheim, which is really exciting. It's going to be in a booth. And there's some details on the website through our show notes, but it's just great that we're going to get to see him, and I don't know what he's going to bring. I'm sure that they're trying to figure that out right now, Anna Consetta and Steve and everybody at the ranch. But it's pretty cool. I mean, if you're not able to make it out there to Rancho Obi-Wan, at least if you're going to go to Anaheim, you can get a taste of all the great things that has to offer.
Yeah, Steve is definitely a down-to-earth guy, real easy to talk to and easy to just get along with. And you and I, Dan, had talked about doing a road trip, when we do Celebration, and it wasn't in the schedule for us. But, him being there, I think, is a fantastic way to meet him. Folks who want to get a little taste of maybe Ratchet Only One can go visit his booth and meet him, obviously get him a photograph or possibly, an autograph of some sort. But I'm definitely putting him on. He's on my list to go check out and meet and greet. So it just builds to the celebration. It seems like we're adding a building block each time as we move closer to this date and the celebration. Our next collector news item, some Gentle Giant goodness. They definitely have a lot of good stuff coming out from those guys. We've talked about them before and all the big figures and all the stuff they're coming out this year. But they're coming out something next year, 2015. It's a Boba Fett life-size vintage monument. Now that's a mouthful. I don't purchase monuments very often. When I do,
have you ever?
No, I have never purchased a monument. I'm sorry, I'm not a huge vintage character action figure Star Wars collector.
But you played with these with your cousin.
I did, and they were cool. But that was, a 3-inch version, and I could carry it in my pocket and eat my lunch and be okay, and not have to, have it in my room and it cost me, a payment of a house payment or something. It's
6 feet tall. It's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, but it's plastic joints that don't bend at the arms, and he looks like a robot. I don't know. I guess for the vintage collector, dive in, go for it.
Let's just talk about the price. This is the thing that our friend Scott loves to hear. Was talking about $2,750.
Yeah.
But Corey, it qualifies for free shipping.
Well, I found that
hilarious.
So.
I don't qualify.
But only 48 states. So
they have to bring it down with a helicopter.
Yeah.
But man, okay. Let's just be honest. You think it's insane, right?
Well, if it's insane so much as I would use my money elsewhere.
That's a very, very, very wise way to say it. I practically am drooling over this.
I bet you are.
I am. And in fact, I already have a perfect spot in the house for it.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, I'm not going to spend $2,750 on it. It's way more reasonable than the Han Solo and Carbonite.
Yeah.
That's for sure, which is over $7,000, almost $8,000. So I think it's pretty darn awesome. I remember when Boba Fett was a mail order figure through Kenner, and I got it, and I was on the school bus. I don't think I've ever told this story on the show, but I was on the school bus, and I opened the window, and I held the figure out, and I put his hands up. I don't think I had the gun in his hand. I'm sure I practically could hyperventilate thinking I could lose the gun on the street. But I held him out of the school bus window, and I pretended like he was flying, and then I thought, what if I dropped him? And so I brought him in real quick. I just think that's just a funny memory. Not to mention that I could have had my arm cut off.
I was on the edge of my seat there with that story.
Oh yeah, good. Well, that was the plan.
Well, let's talk about this figure a little bit. It's a gorgeous. Is it the classic colorization of it?
The Kenner. Yeah, absolutely. It's the original Kenner Boba Fett figure that was released before Empire Strikes Back came out.
Yeah, the paint job looks like it's 1977. And it's
are you knocking the Fett?
Yeah, these figures are cool for collectors. I mean, if you guys are out there and you're drilling like Dan is, and you got the cash, throw down, get it. I say I'll go for it. But me, it looks just like a giant piece of plastic to me. I'm sorry.
You're killing me.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fair. Don't be sorry. Be you. I like that.
So, if you got this Boba Fett, would you put it on a pedestal that rotates?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And some nice, dramatic lighting.
You mean like the Sundays at the truck stops, the ice cream?
Yes.
No, I probably wouldn't. I think I would just pose it and then just be happy.
But how would you pose it? With arms out straight, like he's going to strangle somebody?
No, it would just be down like you would be in the package. That's what I would do.
But he's out of package.
Oh, I know. Wouldn't that be cool if it was like a giant... No. So I wonder what Jeff McGee would say to this. We'll have to ask him the next time we talk to him. But I wonder how he views it. I'm sure he thinks it's cool, too. You remember, not last year, but the year before for Comic-Con, they showed they were going to do it with a Stormtrooper. And I actually thought that was sort of insane, and I thought it looked weird. Then they did the Vader complete with the cape, and I thought, oh, that's pretty sweet. I think I'm coming around. And then when I saw this Boba Fett one today, I'm like, dude, I would love to have that. So, again, another example that I need to have my head examined, I guess.
Well, the other thing, too, is, you think it's a good choice for them to pick Boba Fett?
Of course.
It seems like they...
Who else would you put?
Why can't you do somebody else? Luke, Han.
Yeah, you can. It's just that the notion of the vintage, and they're not really a face character. It's just like a helmet or a costume. It just kind of adds to the museum quality without looking for authentic. If it was like the actual Luke or Han, which they may do someday, I kind of doubt. I have no inside information on that, but I don't think it would look as cool. I think it would just be more magnified to how much they didn't look like the actors. But these... clearly they don't look exactly like the armor or the costuming, but they're just a lot of fun. It's so nostalgic.
Truly, it's nostalgic for the folks out there looking to buy this stuff. So, guys, check it out. If you're interested, it comes out, like I said, 2015, third quarter. To pre-order, it's pre-order right now, I guess. If you're out there, it's limited edition, so it's be one of a kind. You get one, so... if you get one, hey, take a photo, send it to us. We'll post online and drool all over it. So, good luck.
Our next collector's news story is just about our Coffee with Kenobi t-shirts. Last time we had announced that we were getting them out. At the time of this recording, we have sold 24 out of 30. We have 7 days and 23 hours left, again, at the time of this recording. When you are actually listening to this podcast, it may be done. I don't know. But so we're just 6 away, Corey. Very exciting. We've got the orange, really good looking shirt, and then we have it in blue. And I'm glad that we're talking about this on the show. A lot of people have asked, why did you make the women's cut in blue and not the orange, which is your logo? And why is that, Corey?
Well, we went through, 2 or 3 different websites to get that blazing orange color we wanted, and just to get
so the logo would actually show up.
Yeah, so it'd pop out, and we wanted to definitely get, that was our main idea, and we had some trouble getting that available for some other sites, and we might revisit that too in the future. But with this Teespring, they give you options of choosing, a regular shirt and a whole bunch of different colors. And then I also wanted to get a female cut so that ladies could go out there and grab one up too. And they didn't have the orange. I was really bummed out. Really, I didn't want to not give the option. But when we first designed this logo, we went through multitude of different colors and stuff. And blue was definitely a runner up. So, and I'm getting one of these. I'm getting a blue shirt for my wife. She's gonna wear it proud.
Yeah.
Loud and proud. And I know you are looking at getting one for your wife as well.
Absolutely.
And so it's unique. So that I think I put on here. It's exclusive. So you're not going to find this anywhere else. Like I said, at the time of this recording, you have about 7 days, just shy of 8 days to get your order in. 30 are the target. And folks out there who want to place their order, we'll say we go over 30. Teespring gives us the option of going way above 30 if we want to. As many as you can fit in here, and the time limit allows. So certainly get out there and place your order and get yours today.
But I think this would be a great shirt to wear at Celebration Anaheim. A good way for people to notice you, especially star celebrities. Oh, look at that vibrant orange walking down the Convention Center. I better go talk to them. They must have something interesting to say, right?
I would hope we have something interesting to say. Yes.
Well, not us. We're the goofballs.
I see.
No, but like our listeners and the people who love the show and have been so gracious with their time listening and sending emails and MP3s to us and Facebook and Twitter and all the great ways we get to talk to our listeners. I think it'd just be a cool thing.
Well, also too, I mean, we put this out here, and Teespring does the little kickback program where, we'll be getting a little bit of money off the side here, and we want to put that out front and say, all the money we're going to get raised from this is going to go towards recording upgrades. I know Dan and I are looking real hard at getting some new technology to be able to take to Anaheim Celebration and be able to record crystal clear interviews and meetups and who knows what, so we want to get that out there and be able to just provide more funding for that, and obviously get it out to as many fans as possible to be able to listen to the podcast, and who knows what happens. So get out there and make your order today.
Hi, this is Jordan Mason with Cinelinx.com, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. With Dan Z and Corey Clubb, this is the podcast you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 24 is Darth Maul. What do you love about the popular Sith Lord? How did you feel about his resurrection on the Clone Wars? And what does he add to the Star Wars mythology? Joining us on this topic is Star Wars collector and editor-in-chief of Cinelinx, Jordan Mason. Jordan is a passionate Star Wars fan whose website, Cinelinx, is an excellent resource for not only Star Wars, but of all things film and games that we love. He also recently finished his first blog for the official site, focusing on collecting. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, guys. Thanks very much for having me on here tonight.
Well, it's our pleasure. And I think this probably happened, Jordan, a few months ago. You reached out to us, and we've been chatting, became fast friends. And you drew our attention to Cinelinx, which is an amazing website, which we look forward to asking you about.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And the main thing we have here is we want to talk about Darth Maul. So just go ahead and tell us, what do you love about Darth Maul?
Oh, man. It's more like, what do I not love about Darth Maul? When the prequels first became a reality, I'm dating myself now, but I was still in middle school. And
I don't know, you're dating yourself. I was in college when it came out.
Oh.
Actually, no, I was out of college.
Dating myself young then.
Yeah.
I was in middle school, and I was very, very into martial arts, which I still am. And when they first introduced Darth Maul as the villain, a couple things struck me about him. I was like, one, he looked cool. I mean,
yes.
The prequels tried to do their best, especially Episode 1, wanted to give Star Wars fans something they could relate to. And one of the most iconic things about Star Wars is how incredible the villains are, which I think Darth Maul was a great start. I mean, he was a really good-looking villain. He was all about being a bad guy. And for me personally, he was a martial artist. He had what essentially was a really cool bow staff lightsaber. And, for me, being so into martial arts, that really resonated with me. And, if you read the novelization and more about his, what little backstory they gave in the Star Wars universe, Darth Maul was also a martial artist, not just, a force wielder. So I thought that was really neat. And, and ever since that's the main focus of my Star Wars collection is Darth Maul stuff. It still is.
Well, of course, Ray Park's known for his martial arts skills and obviously pulled it off incredibly. I'm curious to know, though, you mentioned that you were in grade school when Episode 1 came out. How did that impact you as a upcoming Star Wars fan? And not had you seen the original trilogy before that?
Oh yes, my aunt and uncle got me the original VHS trilogy when I was about 5 years old.
Awesome.
and I've been hooked ever since. And I think I wore the tapes out and had to get a new VHS box set because I wore out the tapes with how much I watched them. And and it was one of those things. My dad took me to all the special editions when they started hitting theaters. So he took me to all those, and then I was old enough when they announced the prequels to really start being more active in it. I'd been reading the books, been picking up the comics. I'd shifted from playing with the toys to really collecting them at that point. And so when episode 1 actually hit theaters, I was just amazed. I felt it was an incredible time to be a fan, because for the first part, first 8 years I'd been a fan or so, there was no hint of new movies or anything. I thought that what I saw on those VHS tapes was going to be it. So I remember sitting in the theater for episode 1 thinking how surreal it was to see a new Star Wars crawl up on the big screen.
Oh, yeah. And now, so since you have this background in martial arts and you're passionate about that discipline in Darth Maul, how much of Ray Park adds to the characterization of Darth Maul for you?
Oh, I think it adds a great deal. I know they didn't use his voice, of course, and of course he didn't say very much to begin with, but I think his body language is what made Darth Maul such a intriguing character for a lot of fans, because he was, even though he didn't say anything or do a whole lot, you could tell he was filled with anger and malice, and it all was portrayed through body language, which could only come from the actor doing it. That and he felt like a real threat. Anytime he did stuff with the lightsaber we'd never seen before in a Star Wars movie, and that made him such a viable threat that it gave a lot of credibility to him as a character.
I agree with that. So speaking of him as a character, looking at him from a mythological perspective, how does he fit in with some of the great villains of film and mythology?
Well, like I said, so much of him is about personality, and he fits into some of those archetypes. He's not the master planner. He's not the intelligent villain. He's just not. That's where Sidious or Palpatine comes into play. He's an enforcer, and he fills that enforcer archetype very well. He's basically a barrier for the heroes to get past. And while it sucks that they got past him so early, in the trilogy, that's essentially the role he filled. He was very integral for Obi-Wan's character arc. And because, especially in episode 1 and even into episode 2, Obi-Wan, his personal journey is also what we're following. And he's essentially going through the traditional hero's journey. He has the mentor, he loses the mentor, then he has to overcome the obstacle in order to fulfill his purpose, which, he gets his knighthood. Then he takes on the task of training Anakin. And as far as mythology goes, Darth Maul fits that perfectly. He's like the centaur or minotaur, forget which one it is, in the middle of the maze.
Oh, the minotaur. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, and I've always looked at it too. You made a good point where he's a blockade for, making on to the next, portion of their journey. And that's a good point. I really like the way you mentioned that. And I've always kind of seen it as like episode 1's kind of always been to me like them fighting Darth Maul. It seemed like it was like a video game style. They're jumping levels and they're, getting up to the villains. I really like that input. That's really cool.
Well, thank you. I try to sound smart on occasion.
Hey, I think you are succeeding, my friend.
So, why is Darth Maul more than a one-dimensional character rather than kind of like a blunt op instrument, if you will? I mean, you mentioned his martial arts skills. Obviously, he's got great skills, and he can use how to use the Force. So, expand on that a little bit.
Well, I think, like I said, the martial arts is something that was, again, I think unique to Star Wars in that, in the previous trilogy, you're dealing with people that didn't really know what they were doing. Luke was basically the last of his kind and only had these old mentors to help him. And he was still trying to figure it out. And so with the prequels, one of the things I enjoyed most was seeing people who knew how to be Jedi, who knew how to be Sith, and could use that to the fullest potential that they had.
All that experience and yes.
Yeah, and I think Darth Maul was a great example of that, in that he showed us something that we hadn't seen before, something that might, it gave us an indication of what previous Sith may have been like, because they pretty much said he's definitely not the first, and that he could be a good example of what came before, or since he was killed off so early, it also was one of those things like, how are they going to top him? Because you knew they had to. And so it was interesting for me after that point to see what direction they were going to go in to actually make a villain more impressive than that.
And do you think they succeeded with that?
To some degree. I don't, as far as Dooku as a character, I like him.
I do too.
I think he brought kind of what, Ian McDiarmid did in Return of the Jedi. He brought the old school vaudevillain style bad guy to the fray. The only problem I have with Dooku is from a design element. He doesn't inspire the same intimidation factor as Darth Vader or Darth Maul did.
No, few do.
No. And, I mean, basically, if when the first pictures of him came out online, it was like, oh, man, it looks like an old dude with a lightsaber.
It's like a mirror image, a twisted image of the Obi-Wan from Episode 4.
Yeah, pretty much, which isn't necessarily bad, and I think there's good things to play on that, but it's not like, it's not one of those, like, when you first saw Darth Maul or Darth Vader on the screen, you knew this dude was a threat. And Dooku had to prove that he was. And I think he did. It just was harder at the initial part of it.
You also made a good point, too. I mean, Darth Maul was a fighter, and Dooku is more of a strategist, I think.
Yes, and I think that's where his aspect came into play best. One of my favorite scenes with Dooku is when he has Obi-Wan captured, and that whole dialogue between the two of them, I think, is probably one of the better scenes in the prequel trilogy, really, because it's acted wonderfully, and it has a whole bunch of undertones of menace and
tension.
I mean, it was a really good scene, and for me, I think that's when Dooku became a really big threat for me.
I agree with that. And then, speaking of Dooku and Darth Maul, we really can't talk about this without talking about the Clone Wars, which is, of course, a canonical part of the Star Wars saga. So, how did you feel about Darth Maul's resurrection in the Clone Wars, which was very controversial at the time?
I don't think giddy is a strong enough descriptor. I was.
Were you ebullient?
Yeah. Yes. I was undeniably happy. There had been rumors forever with both Episode 2 and Episode 3 when those were in production that Darth Maul would find a way to come back. And everybody dismissed them as rumors, and then when the Clone Wars actually did it was like, holy crap, they did it. And nobody expected them to, but, if anything's true in Star Wars, it's that unless you see a body at a funeral, they're not dead. And I think there was always some sort of hope there, and honestly, I thought it would happen in a book, like Boba Fett did.
Yeah.
And so when I actually saw it on the Clone Wars, which, like you said, is canon.
Yeah.
Even before they made all the changes.
From the very beginning, always has been. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, man, he is officially back. And I couldn't wait to see what they did with him. And I think they did a good job with it, to be honest. They probably did the best job they could.
So how do you respond to How do you respond to criticism that they shouldn't have brought him back and people didn't like how it happened? Personally, I thought it was quite powerful and strong and added to the mystique of the Force and the Sith side of the Force, clearly. But what about you?
Well, the biggest problem I think I had was Darth Maul's brother. I don't like it when random siblings just pop up because they feel like story conveniences.
Yes.
And let's face it, it was in this instance, but they used it so well. You know, you can use cliches in any story as long as you do them well. Nobody cares. And I think they did it well enough. Like you said, it was a fairly powerful arc, especially those last two episodes where it really came back.
Yes.
You know, and like you said, it showed different aspects of the Force, which are always interesting because it didn't explain anything. It was still a very mysterious process. You're not entirely sure what happened, but it opens up questions. And anytime I can come away from a story wondering or thinking, man, I'd like to know more about this, or I think this would be, this is an interesting tactic. I feel it's a good story or a successful story. As long as it wasn't a plot hole that made me wonder.
Right. And really it gave him, he did go from, because I think you could argue that in episode 1, he's amazing and intense and just a fantastic character, especially design-wise and how Ray Park carries himself. There's not a lot to him. And the Clone Wars makes him calculated, a devious planner, a charismatic, fearsome person. And, of course, his power stands on its own.
Yeah. And I love that element, too, because you've got to figure, or at least I always did, that, if the Sith were only 2 and Palpatine was potentially training him as a replacement, that he had to teach him more than just how to fight and look awesome. And I like that they expounded upon that and showed that, he did learn other stuff in his time as a Sith. And his time in exile as a crazy spider only brought that out more in him. And I think that was it was good to see. It did. It developed his character a great deal.
And I was kind of late to the Clone Wars game a little bit, catching up on that stuff. And I knew he'd been announced. I knew that, it was kind of up and coming in some of the seasons. And in season 3, I thought he was in season 3, but he wasn't in season 3. And then season 4, and, I was really anticipating it a lot for myself. And the way to see it on the screen there, and like you say, the spiderish, and he's down in this sewers of this planet and just like scavenging and going nuts and crazy. I thought, oh man, I thought it was kind of jarring at first, but then like you mentioned, it was really a unique take on him. And I got a comment too. Sam Witwer's voice was incredible.
Yeah,
I think he did a good job.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think even to bring Maul back like the way they did, the team there with Filoni and those folks did an excellent job. And I think it was, like you said, I'm glad they did it through the Clone Wars versus a novelization or, in that way. And I think they really brought him to more power and really makes his impact in episode 1 more powerful.
Yeah. Plus, it gave me more toys to collect. Which I was very excited about. I'm not going to lie. At the time, when they announced that he was really coming back, they basically hit a dry spell with the Darth Maul stuff they could make. And literally the first thought was like, sweet, they're going to make new toys. It's kind of a silly thought, but that's really what passed through my head first.
Well, I think all Star Wars fans look forward to all the merchandising and things like that. Certainly, it's fun to look towards those. Even now, as Rebels is coming out.
Oh yeah.
But now, going back to Clone Wars, like we're talking about, how in your aspect of it, from seeing him in episode 1, and seeing him on screen, and then seeing him in Clone Wars, how did that enhance his character to you?
Well, it was an interesting transition, and I think it wouldn't have worked if they had done it so soon. Like if Clone Wars had actually come out, just a couple of years after episode 1, I don't think his resurrection would have worked. I don't think people would have.
That's an interesting point.
Would have bought it. I think that because there's such a time gap between episode 1 and the Clone Wars series, and we'd finished the trilogy at that point. We'd seen everything, and I think that allowed people to be in a better mindset for side stories. Which, let's face it, essentially Darth Maul is a side story in the Clone Wars, and I think the way they introduced it, how they implemented it as part of the actual Clone Wars and not having anything to do with, Revenge of the Sith or anything like that, I think allowed people to accept it better. And it made it so that we could care about him again. Because otherwise we've been like, why are we paying attention to this guy? He's already dead. If it'd come out just a couple years, in 2000 or 2001, I don't think people would have cared. I think they would have been ready for something new at that point because they'd accepted his death and were ready to move on.
And Lucas has certainly shown over the years that the timing is just so important and impactful, and why Star Wars keeps getting reinvented over and over again. So speaking of that, so you mentioned some of the books. What about the Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir series? And at the time of this recording, we've only read the first 3. I believe the first 3 are the only ones that have been out. So what has that series done to further establish Darth Maul in the canon for you?
Well,
because it filled in those gaps, and I certainly have mixed emotions about that series.
I think mixed emotions is probably the best way to describe it. Mostly because it's kind of a bummer. I guess some of us are still bummed that Clone Wars ended in general. A feeling that was only rekindled when they released that Lost Mission series on Netflix.
Yes.
And those were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I read this series and like, God, I wish I would have seen this on TV.
Oh, yes. It would have been so much more impactful.
Yeah. And I think, I love comic books and I read them. I think they're great mediums for storytelling, but it feels truncated in this Darth Maul arc. It feels like they're skipping stuff. Which, I understand you've only got X amount of pages in a series, but I can't help but wonder if they did it in 4 episodes as opposed to 4 comic books, how much better it may have ended up being, But we haven't seen the end, so
true.
Maybe that'll just make everything better. Hopefully it does.
Right.
Not that it's horrible, but...
No, I think that 2 and 3 were much stronger than the first one.
Yeah.
So we have, Jordan, when we released our last show, of course, we always throw out the fact that we've got our new topic, and we had you on, and we got a couple of emails from our listeners that we're going to read and talk about. And so the first one comes from our good friend Ryder Waldron, who's become quite a great promoter of our show and an awesome guy, and we really appreciate everything that he's done. And he writes, Hey, guys. I enjoyed your recent show with Adam Bray, which was great, and I'm looking forward to your next show discussing Darth Maul. Since The Phantom Menace came out, Darth Maul has been one of the coolest Star Wars characters in my opinion. But this was based mostly on physical abilities and looks, and he didn't have a lot of depth. From The Phantom Menace, he seems to be one of the most loyal Sith in the saga and is very obedient to Darth Sidious. And anyone that can force throw a piece of equipment to open a hangar door while battling 2 Jedi has to be cool. When Darth Maul was brought back in the Clone Wars, he was shown to have some depth, intelligence, and ambition. He also showed that he could be and wanted to be a leader. This only added to his character and made him seem differently in The Phantom Menace. It also helps that Ray Park and Sam Witwer really seem to embrace Darth Maul, which can't always be said about Star Wars actors. I'm looking forward to seeing Sam Witwer at Salt Lake Comic-Con in September. Thanks for the great show, guys. Keep up the good work. That's Ryder Waldron. And Ryder, it's almost like you heard our conversation with Jordan before we even had it.
I was about to say, man, this sounds so similar.
Yeah, very good. He's a smart guy. So what do you think, guys? I think that stands to reason. As I mentioned before, I really think episode 1 he was awesome and I loved him. And when he was killed or supposedly killed, I was disappointed because I thought, well, what are they going to do with what he was a great character, but I just had faith in the process and the idea of archetypes, as you mentioned, and how storytelling evolves and characters coming in and out of the story, adding to the mythology. But yeah, it's the actors that add to it, and they gave him some ambition and some intelligence, and it added to his awesome. I'll say that.
He did, and he makes a good point too. Writer does about his obedience. It's just interesting that he is obedient, and you see that in episode 1 where he's very, carrying out these little side missions and bring back information, and it's interesting to see that because we know at that point all we know is Darth Vader and how he kind of I don't know if he was obedient, but I also think that he was doing his own thing, I think, in a sense too. But I like that comment. It was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, the obedience thing is great, and I love that they kept that theme even in the Clone Wars when Palpatine or Sidious came back, and he was instantly obedient again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
it was almost sad. It was very tragic.
Yeah,
like you actually felt sympathy for Darth Maul, which I didn't think you could do, but they pulled it off.
Yes, they really did. And I thought I loved. Well, that whole episode was just amazing.
The choreography on the lightsaber dueling, which of course we've been going through a couple of Clone Wars or with season 6, and it seems like they've always been intense, but from season 5 on, it really just shifted into a whole new universe of amazing things. And in your martial arts career, have you done a lot of stuff with stick fighting and things like that?
Yes. In fact, when episode 2 and 3 came out, I actually went because I ended up, going for martial arts and became a martial arts instructor.
Cool.
For a long period of time. And me and my best friend, we actually did like a demo at the movie theater to help the theater promote the film.
Wow.
When people were lined up, and we did stuff like that. And I went to film school as well in college, so of course I have a video of me playing around with lightsabers.
Wow, you've done everything.
He does.
You're a
awesome.
man of many talents, like Indiana Jones.
I've enjoyed a lot of things in life. Yes,
that's great. That's the way to live. We have another email from Lenny Lennep, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correct, Lenny. So I apologize, but Lenny writes. Hi, I just started listening recently, and I think so far CWK is a fantastic podcast. Well, thank you, Lenny. Now to Darth Maul. Hopefully you'll be able to change my mind on this, but at least throughout the movies and the Clone Wars, I think Darth Maul has only one reason to be noted at all, and that is killing Qui-Gon Jinn. Other than that, he appears to me to simply be a background character whose plans for domination are eaten, chewed, and spit out by Darth Sidious. And while the whole saga could have been different had Qui-Gon survived, Maul was simply a vessel for Sidious. There probably could have been 50 other people and the same thing would have happened. And while I haven't read the Son of Dathomir comics yet, can't wait till October when the trade paperback comes out, the end of episode 1 seems to be his greatest contribution to the saga. Thanks, Lenny. Well, Lenny, that's kind of the counter argument that we sort of hinted around to, but didn't quite actually discuss. And for some reason, Qui-Gon, I know why. Qui-Gon is probably my favorite character from the prequels. I just think he's a fantastic character, and of course Liam Neeson doesn't hurt by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't hold any resentment towards Maul for killing him, but that's a pretty substantial thing. I do think there's more to Maul than that, but I think Lenny raises a good point that I think you could clearly argue for as well.
Well, going back to our mythology example, he's an obstacle, and in that regard, yes, you could have swapped him out with Darth whoever and had the same result. I mean,
Darth Corey.
Yeah. I mean, archetypes fill their purpose and then they're gone. That's how it's been. I mean, since people started writing stories, and it's really no different. George Lucas is very much an archetypical writer. You saw that a lot with the original trilogy films, and I think he wanted to keep that in episode 1 as well. And unfortunately, I mean, he makes a good point. It's true, and despite him being my favorite character, it's true. He fulfills his purpose and he's done. Where I think Darth Maul stands out is, especially in episode 1, is his design. I mean, he's designed to be and look like the ultimate villain. And in that regard, he's an immediate success. And, Star Wars is all about visuals and iconography. Darth Maul is an instant classic in that regard. And I don't think any other character could do that. I mean, Dooku couldn't. We already talked about how Dooku wasn't able to give that immediate presence either. Though Dooku filled out, a far more significant role.
Well, even still, I mean, even Dooku played his archetype too. I mean, it's a little more drawn out, I think. But yeah, certainly Lucas had that in mind. So, getting back to some of our questions here, you mentioned earlier that you have quite the collection of Darth Maul items and things. And recently you blogged for StarWars.com on your collecting for Star Wars. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've been collecting, oh gosh, it's been about a couple decades now. And it's a pretty large collection. It's not limited just to Darth Maul, though that is a primary focus. It's one of those things, if I saw two things on the shelf and one was Darth Maul, I'd probably buy the Darth Maul first. If I didn't have it. That's just how I am. And my collection spans, my house, storage shed, it's in tubs, some of it's out. I mean, it's gotten so large. And what I wrote for StarWars.com was about how to keep track of your collection. When you get a collection of that size, which I know I'm not the only collector that has a collection that size, though there aren't as many as there once were. You've got to find a way to keep track of it. Otherwise, like I brought up in the articles, like if you lose something, you need to know what you've lost. Or for me, the biggest reason is to know what I have now. Because I'm tired of spending money on the same thing. I bought a toy. It was a Darth Maul thing. And it's about a little over a year ago. I bought a Darth Maul. I was like, oh man, Darth Maul. So I bought it. Got home, was looking for a place for it. And as I was sifting through tubs and other stuff, while I was moving around, I found like 4 others of the exact same one. So I'd already had him 4 times. And so I basically wasted money on a figure I already had instead of buying something new.
I have done that. When I read your blog, that was one of the things that spoke to me the loudest because that has happened to me too many times.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, really.
Yes. And it's like, man. And of course, I'm not going to take it back to the store because I already had to deal with the cashier once giving me a weird look, being a grown man buying a toy. I don't want to be the grown man that takes it back. And it's so, and I know, like I said, I'm not the only collector with problems like that. That's why I decided to write that article. I'm glad they let me do it.
Isn't it great? It's just such a thrill to see
it really is.
On StarWars.com to see your name. It's awesome.
The most exciting thing for me, and so silly, is to go to StarWars.com and I can type my name into their search window and pop up.
Trust me.
Dan does that twice a day, I think.
Twice an hour. And when we did that when we had when they covered us on Coffee with Kenobi about podcasting, and Corey and I were like, wow. So yeah, I totally know what you're saying. It's just so neat. I hope everybody listening gets a chance to experience that because we've got a lot of amazing listeners on here that could easily write an awesome blog for StarWars.com.
Yeah, it is something, amazing. And, I've written for, a few other magazines and stuff like that. And while those were cool and, it's always good as a writer to get paid for it and get published. But like, as a Star Wars fan for 25 years, it's like, man, I'm on StarWars.com. I don't care about the other stuff right now.
Well, you mentioned your other writing, and let's talk about your amazing site, Cinelinx, which is just a fantastic site for film and gaming and all kinds of great stuff in geek culture that we all love. So tell us about that and how that started and all the good stuff.
Oh, man. Cinelinx started, technically the site is 4 years old, though we had a rebranding about a year and a half ago where we actually became Cinelinx. Before that, we were called The Movie Pool, and we were focused on, it was started by another filmmaker, who'd gone to film school. It was a couple of us filmmakers, and we got together and thought, man, wouldn't it be great to have a site for filmmakers? And that's kind of how we started. And then we piddled around with that for a little bit, and I was like, they brought me in as the main content editor, and I started shifting some directions. I was like, filmmaking's cool, believe me. But what if we started talking about other stuff, And that's when we started getting into movie news. And then after that, it was, we got really good with the movie pool. And then it was, well, let's try video games next. We want to be something for gamers. And then we had a sister website that was dedicated only to games. And then about a year after that, we're like, yeah, I don't want to keep up with two sites anymore. We're going to make one big site. We're going to be all about geek culture and movie culture and gamer culture. And we're going to call it something new. And that's kind of how Cinelinx came to be. And that's probably our biggest focus is culture. I mean, we post up news stuff because, fans of that stuff are interested in news, but we love the culture aspect of it. There's a lot to be said for the movie buff and gamer and geek culture. And that's the element we like to hit. We like to talk about stuff that would speak to our culture because that's who we are. We're nerds.
That's right. We make it cool.
Yes, and we enjoy it. And we wanted to create a space that we thought other people, if they wanted to go learn more about our culture, we wanted them to be able to come and look at us and try and find out what it was more about. I used to work for a gaming website, and the editor there had told me once to stop using the word geek
or
nerd. He's like, oh no, we don't want to get into stereotypes. I'm like, why? Well, if we're afraid to say it ourselves, it's always going to be a negative thing. So one of my biggest goals with Cinelinx was to, we're going to be proud of this. We're not going to shy from it. We're not going to make it a negative thing. This is a positive thing, and here's why.
Yeah, and the look of your site is very sleek, too, and adds to what you're saying. And how did you come up with the actual name Cinelinx?
Oh, man, I wish I could take credit for that, but I can't. The other guy who essentially founded the movie pool, his name's Gabriel, and him and I have been working in this partnership for a few years now, and I had suggested we need to just combine all of our sites into one big thing, about games, geeks, and movies. And he said, great, I think I already have a name. And he shot out Cinelinx. I was like, all right, let's do it. And it was just, he'd had it kicking around for a while. For some reason, he already had the domain name. He had the domain name for like 5 years and just was never doing anything with it. And we was like, yeah, we're going to run with it now. And that's kind of how it came about. And then, that's just what we ran with.
That's awesome. And certainly listeners can go out and check that out and, see what you guys are doing over there and involve themselves with that and get hooked in. But now we're going to move into some of our classic questions. We could kind of call them sometimes. It's the 5 questions.
Well, classic?
I say classic. They're classic. They're classic now.
You just never said it out loud.
It's always in my head, yeah. But it's our 5 questions we ask all our guests on here, kind of get a find where each fan kind of can match up their favorites along the line and see where they hit. So our first one is, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire Strikes Back, hands down.
Well, I think I know the answer to the next one, but who's your favorite character?
I would have to go with Darth Maul.
Surprise.
If I would have said Jar Jar Binks, what would you have done?
That's, I don't know if you heard our show with Steve Sansweet. I've quoted it before because it's so funny, but we said, who's your favorite character? And he says, well, it's not called Rancho Jar Jar. It was great.
Yeah. So, Jordan, your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Favorite film moment would be from Empire Strikes Back, actually, where Yoda lifts the X-Wing out of the swamp and tells Luke Skywalker that he fails. It's something you hadn't really seen in movies before. You're used to the hero always succeeding, and when Yoda said, no, you didn't, it kind of flipped the archetype on its head and made him a more relatable character. It's something I've talked about before in this scene, and it's still one of my favorites every time I watch it.
Oh, I love that. So if you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own?
That I own? Oh, goodness. Man, that depends on the day. I mean, I have so much, a lot of times my favorite collectible is whatever I bought that day. If I had to pick one, and just one, I would have to go with the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Star Wars Visionaries figures. That was the first time they had the robotic Darth Maul in figure form based off the Visionaries comic book. It was packaged with Owen Lars. And it was so neat. I love collecting expanded universe stuff too, and combining that with Darth Maul, plus being exclusive only to the con. It was a big deal, and still one of my favorite pieces.
That's cool. Okay, fifth question we have here. What particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
Probably the easy one, redemption. And I know that's the go-to for a lot of fans, but it's a powerful theme. The idea that nobody is beyond redemption is a great idea. And morally speaking, I love that, especially, like I said, being a police officer, and just, my dad is a former minister, and it's one of those things where it really speaks to me, and it can speak to every generation. Nobody is beyond saving. And, a lot of movies pick up on themes like that, but I think Star Wars really did it best.
Completely agree. Well, Jordan, you've been a wonderful guest. It's been so awesome finally having you on the show, and I really love what you're bringing to the table about Darth Maul and collecting and just
really
storytelling.
Appreciate you having me, man.
Oh man, absolutely. So where can people get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on Twitter. I'm on the Twitter. I sound like an old person when I say that, but I'm on Twitter at Jordan Mason, my name, JordanMaison. I'm on Facebook, same name. If you want to email me anything in general, you can always email me at jordan@cinelinx.com.
Oh, very good. That's awesome. And we will put links to that in our show notes and to cinelinx.com. And Jordan, thank you again so much. We would certainly love to have you on in the future to talk about more Star Wars, Rebels, anything.
Absolutely. I would enjoy that as well.
And certainly keep up the collection, keep up the great website going too. We really enjoy what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys.
Our topic for show number 25 is Padme Amidala. How does her character evolve through the prequels? From queen to wife, what makes her a strong character? Do you think her strength is diminished by the end of episode 3? And what about her losing the will to live? We'll be joined by Padme herself, the one and only Kat Tabor, from the Clone Wars to discuss this popular topic. In 500 words or less, be sure to send us an email or MP3 with your thoughts, comments, and opinions for us at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com.
I like the sound of that.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Ano, buddy, do you read me? I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
Our first email comes from Elaine Tivet. And Elaine, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. And she writes, I was listening to your discussion on the disappeared episodes from the Clone Wars, and I had a thought about how taking the Force from a person's body kills that person. If we agree that there is such a thing as a soul, I think we can also agree that severing a person's soul from their body kills them. After all, if there is no more soul, then the body is an empty shell. Even if the body were to continue to function, it will become, if anything, more like a zombie. I agree with your thinking that the soul is not the Force itself, and that therefore Mother Talzin was not taking the souls of the council members. So in the end, the Force, the soul, and the body are three separate but intertwining entities. That being said, I recall what Ben Kenobi said in A New Hope about how the Force surrounds and penetrates all living things, and how it binds the galaxy together. Now we know from these two episodes, and that quote from Ben, that every living thing has a bit of the Force in it, and that the Force's very presence is what allows things to exist at all. What if the Force is what binds the soul of the body? It would explain why, once the Force was taken out of the council members, they just died. Their souls weren't taken, but the midichlorians in their veins that bound their souls to the galaxy, or rather to their physical parts in it, was taken, leaving nothing to keep them connected to the physical realm. This theory may also help to explain why Ben and Yoda's bodies completely disappeared upon their deaths. The goal of their training during their exiles may have been to learn how to completely unite their souls and bodies with the Force, to the point where the three would remain united, even if, for example, their bodies became damaged and ceased to function on their own. Once the body ceases to function, because it is still connected to the Force, it transforms, physically disappears, and becomes part of the spiritual realm. Or you could argue that the purpose of their training was to unite completely their Force with their souls, only so that when their bodies ceased to function, their bodies could no longer exist because there were no more Force, aka midichlorians, binding them together and allowing for their existence. Therefore, they, the bodies, simply disappear. That bit of Force that once bound their bodies together is now transferred to their dead souls, which both Ben and Yoda are able to use to transform themselves into apparitions similar to what their physical bodies used to look like. I'm thinking that the first idea might make more sense with regards to the council members not disappearing after the Force was removed from their bodies, but you could make up some loopholes that would allow for the second idea to work as well. This turned into something more rambling and more complicated than what I had originally intended. I hope it all makes sense, or that at least what pertains to the actual podcast discussion makes sense. I'm enjoying your cup of Clone Wars discussions. Lots of great insight. Keep up the good work. And Elaine, mind officially blown.
Yes.
That was far from rambling. It was quite insightful, a very metaphysical look really at everything. And I never thought about the idea of the Force and the body and the soul combining. From a spiritual standpoint, the idea of being able to take a soul, to my belief to that is that that can happen. But of course, this is a fictional universe, but unless it is willingly given, and this was not willingly given, it was ripped from them. But then you talk about the idea of the midichlorians being sort of the glue that keeps everything together. I thought that was really awesome. Yeah,
it's interesting. I love her comments about the Force ghosts and combining the souls, and it makes me think of I'm coming up blank on possibly a movie where a villain stole souls by sucking their souls in. I don't know.
You thinking of Harry Potter?
That might be it. Well, I also think of the Avengers movie with Loki and stealing, putting darkness into a heart of that, with the staff there. He did with Hawkeye in the beginning.
Right.
So it's a similar aspect of that kind of feeling of that. And I even looked at the top of this email, and she notes the title of the episodes is called The Disappeared. Now, that's in reference to disappearing council members.
Right.
But could that just be in reference to the disappearing souls?
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. There are numerous things here to chew on.
How cool heard that thing about this theory helping to explain why Ben and Yoda's bodies completely disappeared upon their deaths. That was a neat way to look at it. That's never really been fully fleshed out. No pun intended there. A lot of puns in this show tonight. The Force binding the soul to the body, and then when it's gone, that's why they just disappear. I love that. Elaine is like, and yet again, another one of our listeners that we could easily have on to co-host the show with us, because this is quite insightful. Brilliant work, Elaine.
Our next email comes from Rob Irwin. He sent us an MP3 to play. We'll go ahead and play that right now for you guys. Take a listen.
Hey guys, it's Comic Book Rob here in Sydney, Australia. This is more of a comment for your Star Wars Rebels show, but hopefully something you can take and riff on a bit. Basically, Ezra Bridger. Now, I've long held the belief, even when I was a kid, that entertainment for kids didn't necessarily have to have kids in it. I think of cartoons I used to watch like Mask with the Scott Tracker character, or Battle of the Planets with Keop, or even more recently with Episode 1 and Anakin. And in all of these forms of entertainment, I've never heard people really say, hey, that kid was awesome. That kid really sold the show to me. So, is it brave to have a character like Ezra in Rebels? Is he just there for the kids to have someone to identify with who's a bit closer to their age, even though I don't think kids actually need that? Will he grow up over several seasons of the show, perhaps, so we see him aging and changing? I'm really interested to know what you might think of Ezra, or younger characters like Ezra in general. Are they needed? Anyway, over to you to discuss. Love the show. Keep on making them.
Well, Rob, wonderful MP3. We love good MP3s. It's definitely a dynamic to the show Rebels. And a wonderful question to ask, to put out there. Yeah, our kids needed to be able to promote a story, and we're going to see them grow up. I mean, I always think of, with those sitcoms where kids are young and they grow up through the years, and it's nice to see them, get to, involve themselves with a myriad of, young kid problems, then teenage problems, then young adult problems, and I would hope to say that he would grow and mature as a character. I think I don't think he's necessarily needed to bring fans and younger viewers to the show, but I think it's a good opportunity to throw a like-minded person in there to be able to to pull viewers in. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's a young child figure to get the kids to watch it and be able to relate to too. And I'm assuming he's gonna learn some lessons. Some values as far as life goes on, and doing good, and defeating evil and things like that of that nature. I also think of things of Episode 1 and Anakin being so young, and I remember seeing that for the first time in the trailer and thinking, oh man, some young kid's gonna be able to hold this whole movie together. And it wasn't necessarily that ideal, but it was a myriad of characters, and I think wasn't so focused on Anakin until maybe halfway through the movie itself. And I think it's really nice to be able to have a young star to be able to give a focus point, but also it's still a family of characters in here to be able to pick from and boost that character up.
And what you just said actually made me think of more comparisons too. And Rob really brought some great topics to the table. So be sure that you check out his podcast, thecomicshow.net. He is at Comic Book Rob, so be sure to check that out. He's got some great stuff. I think speaking of comics, I can't help but think of Batman and Robin. Yeah, and I'd never thought of that before until you started talking, Corey, about Rob's MP3. But you've got the older mentor Batman doesn't have anything to prove, but Kanan does to himself.
Right.
And to the people around him. I think at least that's how he seems to perceive it, based on the limited sampling we have of him as a character so far. Although A New Dawn certainly did flesh out a lot for everyone. But I think that I agree with you, not necessarily necessary, but smart. I mean, you've got males, you've got females, you've got different ages, you've got different backgrounds and perspectives and different motivations, which we have yet to learn about. And these are those little archetypes in story and mythology where you've got the mentor and you've got the student, and you get to see their growth when they're younger, not when Kanan isn't a wise and old wizard like Gandalf or Obi-Wan Kenobi or Merlin or something like that, Joseph Campbell, but he does fit that mold of the mentor. So it brings a unique dynamic, again, showing that Rebels is taking what we've seen and flipping it and bringing something bold and exciting to the Star Wars universe. So I agree with you, Rob. It doesn't necessarily need to be there. And we're probably going to have to, I'll take one of Corey's lines, wait and see. But I think it does provide an interesting dynamic. And I think that he will probably be like Ahsoka and will grow and change and learn. And we will start to grow and change and be even more fond of Ezra as the show goes on.
Our last email comes from Melinda Wolf, and she writes, "Hi, Dan and Corey. I loved show number 22. The interviews with Concetta Parker and Ian Dasher were outstanding. Reading Ian's The Empire Strikes Back right now, and while I thought I should not listen to what you had to say about Jedi Returneth, I didn't want to hear any spoilers. I went ahead and gave it into temptation. Besides, I know what happens in the story. Laugh out loud. It isn't as if Ian was going to change anything. His tribute ode to his son was superb. Can't wait to see more from this talented writer. And in talking about show number 23, she says, I'm looking forward to everything where the show is concerned. And she's talking about Star Wars Rebels here. It looks absolutely awesome, from the artwork to the animation to the storylines to the characters, everything. I was so impressed with what Dave Filoni and his talented team did with Clone Wars that it was practically a given I'd be swept away with the Rebels craze. I don't care that I'm not targeted age audience of most animated shows. There is so much depth in the Star Wars galaxy in Clone Wars and in Rebels have added and will add. How can one be a Star Wars fan and not be immersed in what's ahead? I've enjoyed watching the trailers to get glimpses of what's expected during the first season. There's just enough to whet one's appetite for what lies in store for Kanan, Ezra, Hera, and the rest of the new cadre of Star Wars Rebels. I know I'm not alone in thinking it is awesome and that the members of the cast are big Star Wars fans just like us. As a fan, in my little corner of the galaxy, it just makes me feel so good to know that the new chapter in Star Wars timeline is in good hands, both behind the scenes and right there on the screen, if only with their voices. I already know Hera Syndulla, the more than able body pilot of the Ghost, is going to be my favorite character. She's spunky, ready to mix it up. She's determined. She does what has to be done, sometimes a little rashly, and she is a pilot, dashing and full of charisma. I see a lot of myself in Hera, or at least how I'd like to be. You asked, what themes are you starting to notice in the trailers and the latest podcast? The obvious ones are a ragtag group of individuals coming together to form a cohesive team to fight injustice and tyrantry. The Waif-Hu has some special powers that are somewhat foreign yet familiar to him, and eventually learns to what those powers are, and well as learn to use them as he leaves his old life behind. Good versus evil, always a good theme. It'll be wonderful to see how the first season plays out. Great show, can't wait till next one. Take care, Melinda. Well, Melinda, I see it looks like you're catching up on all our episodes and tuning in and have some great comments here. We are too excited for Rebels and all these characters. We mentioned that in our news that we're revving up here. We're getting excited. October is approaching for us to take this all in. And be sure to chime in on our Facebook page and tell us who you like best so far and what you're excited for Rebels. I know we talked about some of the characters. I'm looking forward to, seeing them all interact and get to know them, each of them. But she talked about, some of the themes in the trailers and stuff. And, it is like the good versus evil. And obviously you've stated before, the rebellion of it all and the hardships, that, the folks will have to endure and, just, being to work together in these harsh times.
Well, it's pretty neat. I never thought of this until I looked at Melinda's, but it's like a Bildungsroman, which is a very fancy Latin word for a coming-of-age story.
Huh.
And this is like what Rebels is going to be, these characters coming of age, the rebellion coming of age and coming to fruition to be where it's going to be. And they pretty much said that it doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to lead right into Luke Skywalker and everything that we know from Episode 4, but the seeds will be planted. So this all is great food for thought that Melinda always provides, which is yet another reason why she's our featured blogger at Coffee with Kenobi. So thanks, Melinda, for sending this in, as always.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/coffeewithkenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, download the album Eye to Eye by Steve Torok on iTunes.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 24 of Coffee with Kenobi. A big thank you to Jordan Mason for having a cup of coffee with us and for discussing Darth Maul. Be sure to check out Cinelinx.com for the latest in movie and gaming news.
Thanks to Rob from the Bearded Trio, and to everyone who contributed to this show, to all of you out there who listen and email Coffee with Kenobi. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the topic for show number 25, Padme Amidala, featuring Kat Tabor.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here.